Good evening, afternoon, morning, whatever the hell time it is in your neck of the woods. We are on our way to Scratch and Claw 2. This division is the Chokeslam division, which basically means it's all pro wrestling right here at the Chokeslam Debate League. Haha, I am your host with the most, Matty G, coming at you live from Isolation Station 1123. This is, as I said, our road to Scratch and Claw 2. I am the host, Matty G. I will be keeping time and allotting the questions. We have 3 judges tonight and 2 competitors, as you can see. We'll go through and introduce our judges. First up, Jonathan, the Raptor Master. What's up, brother?
Same thing to you, brother. Very excited for these matches right here. And we got the Payne Master or the Big O. And I know these guys right here. I have an honor to maybe judge one of the matches at one point and way back, and I know their skill sets for their straight weight wrestling, all that stuff. So I can't wait for this match right here. So let's do it.
Radio. And then next to him, we have the man, the myth, the legend, JB3. What's up this evening, good sir?
Hey, what's going on, everybody? I'm here. I'm ready to judge, have a great time, and it's wrestling. I love wrestling, and I just want to take a shout out and just say that I respect every single person in this league. Every single person in this league I absolutely love and respect, and I can't wait to judge this match.
That's right. That's right. We are all wrestling fans here. Vote live, right? Oh yes, there we go with the NWO reference. Down below him is Kevin. Kevin, what's up, brother? How are we doing tonight?
I am doing good. This is my first time actually judging the wrestling now. I'm really excited for this one.
Right on. All right, let's introduce our fighters for tonight. I guess we'll just continue around the circle. He is the Big O, Mr. Ryan. Mr. Big O, how are we doing tonight?
I'm happy to not have been laid off or furloughed. That's always a plus. Yes, topical. But yeah, warmer weather leading into big events coming up over the summer. And here we are all stuck in sweaty houses, no air conditioning, talking about wrestling. This is exactly what the fandom is.
I don't know what you're talking about, being in a sweaty house with no air conditioning. That was a couple of days ago. Here in 100-plus degree weather, Phoenix, Arizona, the air conditioning is running beautifully. But let's continue around the horn with his competitor. I will be referring to him as the Payne Maker, just so we don't confuse when I say Ryan, you're first. He is Ryan Payne. What's up, Mr. Payne Maker?
I'm okay. It seems that finally, after so many days in quarantine, my body is starting to react to all this. So I swear to God, it feels like I'm not sick or anything, but it's just fine. Like I'm always sitting on chairs, laying down, a few stretches, not enough walking. So I think my body's saying it's payback, motherfucker. So I'm just gonna be sitting in the cross-leg position throughout this entire debate.
Well, that's why we call you the Pain Maker. No, it really isn't, but that's okay. All right, ladies and gentlemen, if you've only tuned into the Chokeslam for the first time, let's go over the rules. Each competitor's got a 90-second opening, so a minute and 30-second opening, a 5-minute back and forth freeform debate. Gentlemen, we're all friends here. Let's keep it, let's not do a dong style. Sorry there, Big O, couldn't help that one. No, let's just kind of keep it back and forth for your 5-minute debate, and then you got a 60-second closing. Try and do your best to keep your points, your new points, to the opening and the 5-minute debate. If you forget a minor point, that's fine. You can bring it up, but try and build your debate in the opening and freeform debate. Just wrap up your argument in the 60 seconds. If you guys start talking over each other, I will call timeout, and then after everybody stops talking, I will run 10 seconds off the clock, and then we will continue. And you also have your 1-minute extension, which can be either used for your opening or your closing. You don't really want to give your competitor, a chance to keep knocking you down. Any questions? Anybody got any questions? before we get to after the round is over, I'm going to ask you to write or figure out who you're going to give your point to on screen. Give me a thumbs up just so we don't have judges, screwing each other up, because unfortunately we don't need you guys influencing each other. So let's get started. Let me get my 1.5-minute alarm set here. All right. So each competitor was asked for 2 strengths. They each gave us 1. We'll go back and forth between each other's strengths. Ryan was first, and he chose for one of them. It was AEW. And the question is, who could be the one person to take the AEW World Championship title from Jon Moxley? Ryan, you got 90 seconds when you start talking.
Suffice it to say, even though AEW itself is a relatively new brand, we do have 2 main champions in our midst. We've had Chris Jericho, and now we have Jon Moxley. Both of them have been able to hold on to the title well enough and have been able to be exemplary models of what a champion can be in that model, in that AEW landscape. But AEW is always about going ahead and going against the pale, going against probably what WWE would do. And I'd like to think that AEW would like to go ahead and give the push to somebody and possibly an entire faction that would really go ahead and propel the franchise forward. That is why my pick to take on Jon Moxley and potentially take the championship away from him would be the Exalted One, Brody Lee of the Dark Order. That's my time.
All right. Competitors, do me a favor. If you're going to stop your time, just let me know. I'm going to concede my time just so we can keep going. I do apologize. Should have brought that up. Payne Maker, 90 seconds when you start talking.
Clearly, to everybody who has been paying attention, between the differences what AEW has been doing is that they have been using their platform to not just give us an alternative take on wrestling, but also to show us, and also platform to show us what the wrestlers and the superstars are capable of, not just in the ring, but outside of it as well. How much TV time they get and the promo they use. And one wrestler who I've seen who has not only been able to meet AEW's expectations, but it's also been able to exceed them time and time again since its inception is MJF, Maxwell Jacob Friedman. This guy, it was clear from the get-go he was an asshole as a character, but he was a likable asshole because at the time he was co-aligned with Cody as his best friend. That changed after 4 years to where he became a full-blooded heel in every sense. And every promo he does, he always gives you a reason to hate him even more. And after his victory against Cody Rhodes at Revolution, MJF now has another opportunity to be set down the road to where I think he can potentially be the one to take that belt from Moxley. He's the second biggest heel next to Jericho. And right now, pretty much after Double or Nothing, we're either going to see a road to where MJF's the next opponent, or they'll tease MJF and Moxley until we can't take it anymore for the next Full Gear. And that's my time.
All right. Stopping with 5 seconds left on the clock. So we've got Maxwell Jacob Friedman, MJF, or Mr. Brody Lee. Gentlemen, 5 minutes. Fight it out.
Here's the thing, Big O. I have no complaints against Brody Lee being the next contender. It's just right now at this moment, one thing that AEW likes to get is always the fan response. And unfortunately, because of this situation, we don't have a true idea of where Brody Lee sits among the fans. And it's not their fault. It's out of their hands in this situation. But from what I'm gathering, especially through responses on YouTube and any stream platform with AEW, the fans are kind of up and down with Brody Lee. They just don't know how to feel about him as a character right now.
Right, but you could also say the same thing in some respects to MJF, considering he's been on the shelf for as long as he had. He's only now finally gotten back into competition. And even then, the people that he was competing with in AEW prior to this point were the likes of Jungle Boy, QT Marshall, and Jake Janela. I mean, it's one of those things where he's been fine as like a mid-card heel, but as far as being championship level, I don't believe he's there yet. Whereas Brody, as the Exalted One, as the leader of the Dark Order, with all of his creepers and all of his minions, presents a credible threat to the championship and to Moxley and himself.
Well, I will counter that with what MJF is the credible threat he has, and that is his bodyguard Wardlow. Now, of course, maybe you can write Wardlow off as just the muscle in the situation, but if we saw from that build between MJF and Cody, MJF was able to garner so much heat without having to have one single match against him. They took what could have been a very dry run 3-month feud, and they're able to stretch it out by subtle moments. And I think that can be done with Moxley too, especially with Wardlow being the obstacle in the way, just like how the Dark Order or the Masked Men can be Moxley's obstacle.
Well, that is exactly my point, and I think it actually pertains better for the Dark Order to be the mountain that Moxley has to climb. Moxley, as we've seen when he was going up against the Inner Circle, has always been the kind of person who likes to climb the mountain. When he's up at the top of the mountain, he may not be the best. We've seen that even in WWE when he had championships. He kind of rests on his laurels to an extent. But Mox trying to barrel through everybody and considering the people like Evil Uno, Stu Grayson, Alex Reynolds, John Silver, Preston Vance, 8, 9, 10, the amount of people that Brody could go ahead and put into his way in order for Moxley to finally get to that point where it's him and Brody alone. That itself creates months upon just great matches, great storylines, great angles, and plenty of push for a lot of people that haven't been getting it lately. Brody is pretty much the pinnacle of everything that's going on.
That may be true, but right now we're already getting a fast track to Brody and Moxley coming up at Double or Nothing. Now, we have no idea how this match is going to end. But the thing is, what you proposed, that could have worked if Moxley was given somebody else as an opponent. Maybe, say, someone from Pride and Powerful, or maybe he could have gone against Kip Sabian, Jimmy Havoc, somebody else at Double or Nothing. So then we could have had that perfect setup with Brody Lee and Moxley that could have gone to All Out or to Full Gear, which is why I think the build even works better with MJF, because MJF, he can just immediately start calling out Moxley, having Wardlow do cheap shots on certain Dynamites or whenever Moxley is on Dark, and MJF, who is great at promos, can always come up with a stupid excuse. But because of his character, he will always. I mean, he said he got injured over a hangnail, and then once again he said he got injured because he nicked his neck shaving. We all know it's BS, but we loved it because MJF was able to sell that like crazy. And also, he can do almost a similar thing with Cody, a stipulation setup because of Moxley's dangerous attitude. MJF can do the cowardly heel saying, I don't feel safe around him, so I want my own set of stipulations to where it's not going to be as far with Cody, but it's going to guarantee that Moxley can't touch him until Moxley gets so pissed off he has to destroy, physically devastate Wardlow to where MJF has no choice but to face him.
But see, herein lies the problem with MJF. Now, MJF is one of those people where he's a fine heel, but he is not fine enough. All right, you need to have somebody in a championship position to possibly be the main figurehead of the entire brand. You need to have somebody that can stand tall above others and really be able to go ahead and enforce your power onto them. MJF is Weasley. All right, what you said himself, he's a cowardly heel. And for someone like that, with as brutal as someone like Moxley is, it doesn't click as well. Whereas with someone like Brody Lee, who can go ahead and have this whole gravitas about him, whether he's posing as Mr. McMahon or not, regardless, he gives off this air where he is above all. He is above everything. That is the kind of person that you want to see in a championship match, because once that person is going ahead, has the belt, possibly not coming up or now, but when he has it, he is going to hold on to it with his dear damn life.
MJF has that
Time.
Okay.
All righty, guys. That was your 5-minute debate. Ryan, you open this round, so Mr. Painmaker, you're going to go first in your closing. 1 minute when you start talking.
MJF being a cowardly heel works to his angle. What we've seen works always with wrestling, whether it's WWE, TNA, NWA, or even some of the indies, that a cowardly heel always works with a long-time feud because they always try to create obstacles for your opponent to overcome. It worked perfectly with Sting and Hogan in WCW. It worked well with Christian Cage and Kurt Angle. It also worked perfectly well, especially with Dean Ambrose and Seth Rollins. So something like MJF can exactly work. And also, every time he hits a promo, he's pissing somebody off in the audience, whether it was at Fyter Fest, it was at the first Double or Nothing, it was at All Out, especially at Full Gear. When he turned on Cody Rhodes, the fact that you had a thunderous crowd of boos on him, someone throws water at him, shows you that this guy can get the fans against him. And let's be honest, he could probably do something like that again to where the fans are not only throwing water at him, they will completely trash the ring because MJF is someone you do not, and I mean do not want to see have that belt. Time.
All right, Mr. Ryan, this was your strength. 1 minute. Oh, hold on just a second, guys. Got to close this out. 1 minute when you start talking.
Here's the way I see it. MJF, Brody Lee, great at promos. Fine. Convincing heels. Fine. But does MJF really have the grit, determination, and really the a fear factor to go up against Jon Moxley, with as nuts as he is, and be able to possibly take the belt away from him? No, he doesn't. Brody Lee does. Whether it's with the Dark Order or whether it's simply by himself, he is intimidating, he is forceful, he is larger than life, both in scale and in structure. He is someone who you can see as the main face, evilly holding onto the belt and having all of the Dark Order reign to supreme dominance in AEW. And this is where Moxley would shine. Moxley in a one-on-one match with MJF is one thing. Moxley versus the Dark Order in its entirety is something that everyone would want to see. Match after match after match.
Time. Woo-hoo-hoo. All right, gentlemen. Great back and forth. Judges, take a second, collect your thoughts. Like I said, give me a quick thumbs up on the screen when you got your ideas. Gentlemen, great match. Great back and forth. Great picks. All right, so I got one. I'm waiting for two. And it's 2 and 3. All right. So, all right. The judges' choices are in. Jonathan, quick, short, sweet. Who gets your point? Why?
I'm going to my point to the Paymaker himself because he put some great examples. MGF's heel next to Jericho, and also he gathered heat right here even before he's having a match, and he brings some stupid excuse ideas right here whether to make it more brilliant in the same way. So, and also I didn't hear enough of Big O's point of why Brody Lee's could have been maybe some wrong examples. You had some of it right here nearly close to the end of it, but I didn't hear it right here. So I'm gonna give my point to the Paymaker.
All right, so that is 1 point for the Painmaker. Kevin, who gets your point and why?
My point is it's same. My point with the Painmaker. I got more into it with basically with the when he mentioned the storyline against Cody Rhodes and how he added stipulations to get that match. And that's what actually got me hooked on why it would work for him with Moxley.
All right, so that is 2 points for the Painmaker. He draws blood, but that's okay. We got 3 more rounds. JB3, who'd have gotten your point and why?
Well, I actually went to the opposite. I gave Big O my point. He really got me with the legitimacy of it. You know, a lot of the stuff Ryan was talking about is how great of a heel MJF was, but Big O was really pointing to the fact that Brody Lee could take that belt, and he won me over with the legitimacy of it.
Yeah, and personally, that's how my point would have gone too, but that's okay. That's why there's 3 judges. So let's continue to move on, shall we? This round comes into Painmaker's Strength of WrestleMania, and the question is, what was the worst main event of WrestleMania in the 90s? Painmaker, this was your strength, so you're gonna go first. 90 seconds when you start talking.
The main event I picked, which was the worst in WrestleMania in the 90s, was Hulk Hogan versus Sergeant Slaughter at WrestleMania 7. I think this was I believe this is a worse match, mainly because it wasn't just regarding the build towards it. I mean, the fact that they took Sergeant Slaughter, a man who was heavily patriotic, representing America, who had a GI Joe toy based off of him, his character alone. They turned him heel as an Iraqi sympathizer during the time of the Gulf War. While Vince must have thought this was a great idea to create a good heel, but at the same time, it backfired on him in a multitude of ways. One, it destroyed the reputation of Sergeant Slaughter. Two, it risked the safety of the first stadium he had at WrestleMania, having to go to a smaller arena because people were boycotting or threatening to riot at that WrestleMania. And also, the match before it was Ultimate Warrior versus Macho King, to where it led to the reunite of Macho Man and Elizabeth, to where Macho Man, who was a solid heel for 2 years, went back as a face. This match was terrible because it was just a simple bad guy fight. I mean, and it was also another way to get Hogan over because trying to get his win back after WrestleMania 6. And the biggest issue as well was there were so many celebrity guests who had no idea what they were doing, like Regis Philbin, Alex Trebek involved. They were trying so hard to hype up these guests when they had them on commentary. They didn't understand the storyline, the psychology of the match. So it distracted a lot from it. And I will go in more about talking why this is a worse match. I'm going to concede.
All right. With 5 seconds left on the clock. All right. So, Mr. Ryan, you've got 90 seconds when you start talking.
WrestleMania. The showcase of the Immortals. It's supposed to be the greatest show possible. And yet there's WrestleMania 9. Now, anybody who's anybody in wrestling knows that WrestleMania 9 was a shit show, from the hot venue to the robes to Undertaker being clothed and DQ'd to death. And you would only hope that with this supposedly starting the new generation of performers in the WWF at the time, you would think that the main event with Yokozuna and Bret the Hitman Hart would be the spark of that new generation. That would go ahead and show the changing of the guard, that it wasn't these overly colored, painted people going ahead and leading the charge. We were supposed to get what was hopefully going to be a genre and generational changing match. We didn't get that. You know what we did get? Backstage politics ruining the kayfabe that everyone in that arena went and saw. Hogan and his maniacal, egocentric bullshit went ahead and screwed over what could have been a great platform for Bret Hart and Yokozuna in many cases. They could have really just gone further and further, but they decided not to. Why? Because of fucking Hulk Hogan. And I'll get into that later.
Time. Whoa. Because of Hulk Hogan. All right, gentlemen. 5 minutes. 5 minutes. Fight it out.
See, now here's the problem with saying that there's a problem with Sergeant Slaughter versus Hulk Hogan. Okay, yes. The Iraqi sympathizer thing, hard sell. But we're talking about the 1990s. We're talking about the Gulf War. If you're going to go ahead and you're going to create a heel, that is one good way to do it. In a vacuum, in a bubble of the 1990s, Hulk Hogan, the ultimate patriot, versus an Iraqi sympathizer plays out like pure poetry. In its era, it was perfect. And this match itself was sustainable for that sort of thing. Was it ham-fisted? Sure, but it played off perfectly for what they were trying to go for. Whereas,
if you look, no, go ahead. Keep going. Go ahead.
Whereas my match, not only was it the epitaph of a completely crap test of a pay-per-view, not only was it the mockery that it is, not only is it possibly one of the most frowned upon matches of any WrestleMania, but it also has set a precedent for everything that we have seen many generations longer of people being bigger than the show itself. Because of Hogan's ego, we have Cena going ahead and burying people. We have Triple H going ahead and burying people, because now this set the precedent to show that superstars, particular superstars, were bigger than the performers of the whole franchise. We're bigger than the storytelling. We're bigger than the matches. There is no good reason that Hogan couldn't have battled Bret himself. There was no good reason that Bret couldn't have held on to the belt a little bit longer. But it was only because of the mechanism background that nobody knew about.
I can argue similar to WrestleMania 7. Sergeant Slaughter got that belt because of a cheat, because he got that off Ultimate Warrior, who at the time won it at WrestleMania 6 against Hogan, which was supposed to be a change of the hands, a change of leadership. But also at the same time, Hogan coming back, he wants, he's doing backstage politicking as well. He politics his way into a match against Sergeant Slaughter, which could have been a rematch between him and Ultimate Warrior. But instead, as much as I loved Ultimate Warrior and Macho King, it would have been much more fluid. It would have been more logical if Warrior got his rematch against Slaughter. Because after Warrior lost that belt, he didn't get a rematch further down. He just lost it, and that's it. And then Hogan politics his way into it. And let's talk about the technicalities of the match. That match was a drag-out fight. As I mentioned, they had Regis Philbin on commentary. He did not get anything of the match. Whenever Sergeant Slaughter had Hogan in a submission move, he kept questioning, why is he not grabbing the ropes? He questioned Bobby Heenan on why he's rooting for Sergeant Slaughter. Even though it's supposed to be obvious, he's supposed to be told this stuff ahead of time. He did not care, and that takes you out of watching the match. And also, there were uses, even though this is a straight one-on-one fight, there were blatant use of chair shots right in front of the ref's face. Now, was it DQ? Was it non-DQ? And then we sooner or later get the ref being distracted by Sergeant Slaughter's manager to where Sergeant Slaughter's doing dirty tactics. This match was back and forth. It was a mess, plain and simple. Now, look, one thing I can say, yes,
by maybe today's standards, but certainly not by the 1990s standards. I mean, really, if you're comparing Sergeant Slaughter to any four that Hogan could have had at that time, whether it be Macho King, whether it be Ultimate Warrior, Sergeant Slaughter himself was at least embodying evil. All right, that's the way it's supposed to go about back in those eras. It was completely black and white. There was no gray area. You had a good guy and a bad guy, and the match played out as it was supposed to. Was it political and both on screen and off screen? Possibly, but the match itself plays in what it's supposed to be doing. Not to mention, it was at least a decent enough cap off to that WrestleMania, which was a nice WrestleMania. Whereas mine, it ended up with a 22-second match between Yokozuna and Hulk Hogan with his wonky eye to finish off one of the worst WrestleManias possible. It was the main event is supposed to be the climax. It's supposed to be the cherry on top of the cake. This cherry of WrestleMania 9 is so fucking sour. I want to spit it off into Hogan's face.
It's one of the reasons why mine is worse, because you said my WrestleMania was good. It had some good choices in matches, and as I mentioned, Warrior and Macho King, that great match, and then the title be following up. It's supposed to be a great cap, but instead it was a cherry that went 5 degrees off of the sundae and hits the floor. While yours, it was just a mess throughout the entire show. So
at least your cherry was still fresh. Mine was rotten from the get-go.
Yes, but that means it could not have gotten any better. Mine was climbing. It was climbing with the Undertaker's debut, the Rockers beating against Demolition, with LOD winning a tag match, and having some good heels winning when they needed to keep that belt, like Mr. Perfect holding on to his IC title. That kept climbing, getting the audience invested to where that crap fest of the title made it all move.
Time.
Damn.
Okay. Woo! All right, there, coming out swinging for the fences. All right, since this was the Painmaker's strength, Ryan, 1 minute when you start talking.
Main event in WrestleMania in the 90s. The 90s was a much different time than what we experience nowadays. And mind you, back then, patriotism, our love of war, as opposed to now, maybe sometimes, it was a different mentality. If you're going to have a main event for WrestleMania that was actually pretty decent, then at least you want to cap it off with a story that's going to make people feel good at the end. And Hogan beating Slaughter makes it good at the end. Regardless of how crappy the match may have been, it was good. However, WrestleMania 9, crap after crap after crap after crap after crap, togas, condors, freaking the heat of Las Vegas, Nevada. There was so much wrong with this that you could have at least given us one proper match that would have went from generation to generation and ushered in two big superstars from here on out. But instead, you cap it off with complete bullshit, and it has hurt them ever since.
Time. All right, Painmaker, this is your strength. Wrap it up.
As my opponent had brought up, my WrestleMania was pretty decent. It was very good because of the matches that we saw. We had some logical choices and logical picks of winners. With the Rockers at the time of a fresh Shawn Michaels who was getting hot off of his popularity. Even the Rockers themselves being very popular at the time. We also had the Hart Foundation go up against the Nasty Boys, where at the time the heel stable won, and guess what? The heel stable continued on winning with Jimmy Hart representing his guy. We had Mr. Perfect, a heel, holding on to his IC title by DQ means. It was all logical choices throughout the entire match, especially as I mentioned with Ultimate Warrior and Macho King. That match was a psychological endurance field of near finishes. So these two men doing whatever it takes to beat the hell out of each other. And after that, with the reuniting of Macho Man and Elizabeth, we would expect to at least get something more emotional with Sergeant Slaughter and Hogan. But instead, it's just a paper per paper bad guy fight. Sloppy executions and sloppy finishes.
Time.
Fuck.
Time.
I heard you.
He said,
Whew, all right.
I'm going to mute.
All right, judges, give it some thought. Give me a thumbs up when you're good and ready. And yes, I do accept freshly squeezed thumbs up. Those do count in this division. These were both some pretty bad Mania finishes, if I do say so myself. I got one. I'm still waiting, guys. Kevin, Jonathan, I need thumbs up.
Wait a minute, I thought I saw mine.
Three. All right, JB3. No, I thought you were itching the side of your face. I'm sorry. JB3, who gets your point? Why?
Okay, so my second point also goes to Big O. The reason is just, he brought up so many reasons that main event was trash, and it was just so trash. And he really got a good mix of explaining why his main event was trash and why Ryan's main event was okay. And that really was what got me in the end.
All right, so Big O gets this first point. Kevin, who gets your point and why?
I have to agree with everything what JB3 said. So my point goes to Big O.
All right, Jonathan, who gets your point and why? Just curiosity.
Same thing as both of these guys. My pick would get to the Big O himself because he put everything you need right here because of the backstage politics, Hogan's ego, and it led up to afterwards. So, and that's pretty much it right here. I'm going to give my point to Big O.
All right, so it's a clean sweep for the Big O. All right, gentlemen, let's not beat around the bush. Let's jump into our next round, which comes in the Big O strength of NXT. Yes, I cannot say it like they do on the show. But anyways, it is what's the best NXT takeover excluding War Games? So the question is, what's the best NXT takeover excluding War Games? Big O, 90 seconds when you start talking there, buddy.
Jumping from the WrestleManias of the past, let's go into modern times. Nowadays, while we have had WrestleMania weekends, pretty much the crown jewel, no pun intended, of WrestleMania weekend has always been NXT TakeOver. A showcase of the best and brightest of the future, of the development or indies from across the globe. Takeovers have always gone ahead and really shown us what wrestling can be despite the machinations of Vince McMahon and everybody else. Now, to say that one of them is the best is a hard choice, no doubt about that. All NXTs, for the most part, pretty much play off very well. Now, some people may say that the best one was 2018's New Orleans. However, I claim that while New Orleans was good, NXT New York 2019 took the bar that was raised by New Orleans and surpassed it. And unfortunately, since we didn't get a takeover this year, at this point, NXT New York from Brooklyn does stand at the pinnacle of what NXT and the NXT hopefuls can be and can do when given the spotlight. That's my time.
All right. He is conceding the rest of his time. Painmaker, 90 seconds when you start talking.
It's kind of funny how my opponent talked about how some would say NXT New Orleans would be considered the best, and that is exactly my pick, NXT New Orleans. While NXT New York does a good job of carrying the ball that has been set by precedent by so many takeovers, NXT New Orleans not only took the ball that was set through previous takeovers before War Games, it was able to do great storytelling and really heighten NXT takeovers to where so many people have said in the past that it can almost be on par better than a SummerSlam. It can almost be better than a Royal Rumble, a Survivor Series. And the list of matches that was at TakeOver, I mean, I had to go through my personal notes just to list down a few of them. There was the 6-man ladder match for the inaugural North American Championship. There was the NXT Championship between Aleister Black and Cien Almas. The finals of the Dusty Road Classic, Undisputed Era, Pete Dunne and Roderick Strong against AOP. We saw Strong turn and join the Undisputed Era. You also had the unsanctioned match between Gargano and Ciampa, a huge rivalry that started at TakeOver Chicago and kept going and going and also let's not forget this was also the TakeOver where Shayna Baszler started her run as the longest NXT Women's Championship by beating Ember Moon. There was so many great matches here that it set a huge precedence of a stacked card and kept on rising new heights through each matchup. And I'm going to concede my time.
Time. Called time. I had already called time, so that's not an issue. All right, gentlemen, 5 minutes, fight it out.
Truth is, Ryan, we could have picked any takeover regardless, even the earlier ones when they were just getting started. But I think New Orleans is a better choice because of the storylines that were just going in there. I mean, with Almas just being a champion, I mean, the fact that he was seen as not championship material to now being the champion, using whatever means necessary to win, going up against an enigma like Aleister Black. You also had the North American Championship, which was necessary at a time when you had so many wrestlers on a brand, when you only had the main belt. So the North American Championship was not only just considered a mid-card belt, but it was also considered as a second-tier belt when you had competitors like Ricochet, you had Killian Dane, you had Velveteen Dream, Adam Cole, EC3. I mean, they went balls to the wall in this match, to which every match had to either exceed it or meet its ends, and it's just a prime example.
See, here's the problem with New Orleans. While yes, before New York, New Orleans was top dog. The matches were fine. You even got the 2 5-star matches. I'll even give that to you. It had the 2 5-star matches. However, in the grand scheme of things, every match on NXT New York was rated higher, either by star standards of Dave Meltzer or anybody else, than the matches of New Orleans. It has better storytelling, especially in regards to Johnny Gargano. Johnny Gargano and Ciampa, we've seen that so many times. And yes, that match was a fine match, but it was not the end of the story. Gargano versus Cole for that belt, that was the end of the story. That was the ending that we really wanted to see. Gargano may have been a fine major boss, but Cole with the belt was the final boss. That's how you cap it off. Not to mention, as far as like say some of these matches we're talking about, Baszler versus Moon, okay match. Baszler versus Io Shirai, Kairi Sane, Bianca Belair. That was the least rated of the 5 matches on that card, and that was a 3.75. That's well above the 3.25 that Baszler and Moon got. If we really go on statistics, you had 2 5-star matches. Mine got the 5.5 match in Gargano and Cole.
If this was truly based on ratings, then I would give this to you. If this was truly about ratings, I would give this to you. But every takeover has its own precedence. Like, look, to be honest, I was not a fan of that 4-way match because it was just a cheap excuse to protect Io Shirai and to protect Bianca Belair, and also to maintain Shayna's push moving forward. Shayna against Ember Moon, at least it may have been ranked low, it may have been rated lower, but at least there we had to see a winner in that match. We needed to test Ember Moon, who after winning the championship in a fatal 4-way at a War Games, she needed a contender to test herself against. And Shayna Baszler at that time was at her most ruthless, to where she would have used any means necessary to get that belt. And she did get that belt.
I would argue that wasn't her at her most ruthless. I'd say her going up against 3 competitors was at her most ruthless, being able to still survive with that belt even before going into Raw. And that's the other thing. If we look at the other matches that are going on these cards, Almas Black is a championship match. Both of them as champions paled in comparison to either Gargano or as Cole. And you've got the tag match, Undisputed Era being what they were is fine. But if we're talking tag matches, War Raiders versus Black and Ricochet. These 4 men, before Raw went ahead and screwed them over, this was probably the best you were ever going to be able to see them in a WWE ring.
The biggest problem was they were overbooked at the time, going back and forth between Raw and SmackDown, being at a WrestleMania much later in their with NXT. The fact that these two were put together and going up against Warriors, we should have had a more solid team against them. I'm not going to say anything. They put on a great match. That's not going to deny that. But as far as when it comes to these two as caliber characters, if they were going to be booked as a team, this should have been much earlier. Because with Black, as I mentioned, with Black against Almas, Black, who was slowly climbing the ranks, he needed to face against somebody who would have countered him in technical and striking distances, and that was what Almas was. Almas proved in his matches against Gargano, against McIntyre, that he is somebody who can fight pound for pound, blow for blow, whether it was at a takeover or at a regular NXT show. And
right, but we can't argue necessarily the physicality of the matches because we already know that the physicality, whether it be New Orleans or New York, was fine. But even going as far as storytelling, as you were talking about, there was definitely better storytelling in New York. Look at what you have with Walter versus Pete Dunne for the UK Championship, and Walter finally dethroning him with a 685-day championship reign, and Walter going ahead and taking that belt. Not to mention Velveteen Dream ending the long undefeated streak of Matt Riddle. There was much more storytelling in every single match in comparison to what New Orleans had.
Time. Time. Oh, all right, gentlemen. This was Ryan's strength. So, Painmaker, don't forget, gentlemen, you guys still have your 1-minute extensions in your back pockets. Painmaker, 1 minute when you start talking.
I'm going to use my 1-minute extension.
Oh. All right, 2 minutes when you start talking.
The storytelling aspects of New Orleans was a very good spot there because it started the new chapters of many wrestlers there, with Roderick Strong turning heel, joining the Undisputed Era, with Kairi Sane, being a new up-and-comer, defeating at the time of Lacey Evans, who was a rare newcomer in herself. And also let's move on forward with Gargano and Ciampa. That unsanctioned match. Sure, it may have not ended the story, but this was a good match to show you exactly how long this rivalry can continue. After Ciampa removing Johnny Gargano from NXT, costing him a heavyweight title match at NXT, making Gargano leave NXT. This unsanctioned match was an opportunity for him to take all his frustrations out on Ciampa, to which later at another NXT takeover, he had to fight to win to get back into NXT. And moving on with the storytelling of Black and Cien Almost. Cien had something to prove. He beat McIntyre, yes. He beat Gargano, yes. But he needed another competitor to show why he is a strong champion, why Zelina Vega was a great manager to pair him off with. And you see in this match what Zelina Vega was willing to do to make sure her client had that championship belt. And no matter what happened, whether it was Zelina trying to do a spiked Rana or a crossbody, Aleister Black had an answer for those, to where it ended where Zelina cost her own client the match, with Black using, which was a very wise and strong choice to protect the Black Mass roundhouse kick. Any other competitor could have kicked out of that, but the way WWE booked that match, that booked that wrestling move to be a 1 KO hit, no matter who takes it, shows you exactly how much faith they had in Aleister Black. His championship reign aside, though, but for him to get that belt, this was a good opponent to go up against because they can match pound for pound. And the Dusty Rhodes Classic, Undisputed Era, who had a lot going up against him. Adam Cole becoming the NXT North American Champion. Roger Strong turning on Pete Dunne was a huge turn to where everyone was either cheering or booing Roger join the Undisputed Era, where they had all the gold. Damn.
Time. No, all the gold does not count, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to be the heel there. All right, Mr. Ryan. I was just giving him a hard time. But Ryan, unless you want to use your extension, 1 minute on the clock, waiting for you when you start talking.
I pretty much go back to what I said at the beginning. New Orleans set the bar. New York raised it. I could look at it from a statistical standpoint of view if I wanted to. The 2 5-star matches and 4.25 for Almas and Black. Baszler gets 3.25. The tag match gets a 3.25. Gargano Cole, 5.5. The first time you ever break the bank in WWE history as far as star matches go. 4.75 for Walter and Dunn. 3.75 for the 4-corner women's match. Dream vs. Riddle, 4.5. War Raiders and Ricochet and Black, 4.5. That's just from a numeric standpoint. As far as a storytelling standpoint, if you had to go ahead and work with less, New York is how you work with less and make it better. The new belt, the Gargano Ciampa match, it was all spectacle. You had much further stakes to have to make, and New York made those stakes. They surpassed it. They got better.
Time.
Okay, I'm good. I am good.
All right, guys. So everybody give me the thumbs up, gentlemen, when you're doing just by the way, a little fact checking. The Black Mass is a spinning heel kick, not a roundhouse kick. Just a little side information. Not that it really changes anything or not. Just a little fact checking. I got one thumb.
It might change something.
It doesn't matter. It's all good. It's all wrestling. It's not like it's real, anyways. I mean, the injuries are. Are we good to go, gents? Kev. All right, Kevin. Who gets your point? Why?
My point goes to Big O. I had more information, more talked about why his was great, and plus also with the added of the being greatly reviewed over New Orleans from Dave Meltzer, it kind of does give a little leg up for me.
All right, so Big O gets the first point. Raptor Master, do you agree or do you disagree?
I'm actually gonna agree with Kevin on this one. My point is good to Big O because he pointed out some of the things that why in the segment of New York itself right here we put a better example. He did put some knocks against the Paymaster right here, Paymaker, that Well, New Orleans is good right here. It kind of builds a little comparisons right here, and he puts some more examples why it is, though. So I'm going to give my point to Big O.
All right. So, JB3, do you agree? Do you disagree? What?
It was close, but for me, the Painmaker took over. Pun so much intended. Just the ladder match. The unsanctioned match and the heel turn. It just seemed like that New Orleans was better. He won me over on that. So that's where my point went.
Well, all right. So now this is do or die for the Painmaker. If he gets this point, we move into the speed round. If not, Ryan will win this. So let's round it up with our fourth and final question of our prep question. And it comes in the Painmaker's strength of feud. Which feud in TNA didn't live up to the hype? Painmaker, this is your strength. So you got 90 seconds when you start talking.
The one thing TNA was able to do on its rise of power, during its rise of reputation, it was able to take wrestlers who were not being utilized very well and giving them something to where they can not only succeed, but also show why they were mishandled, mistreated. Sure, we can compare AEW to TNA, but that's not the issue. With TNA, though, they took wrestlers who came from companies like WWE or from the Indies and gave them something to work with. And there was a feud between two WWE guys that could have really had some great potential there, especially since in WWE they were nearly carbon copies of each other when these came with movesets. And that was Mr. Anderson, formerly Ken Kennedy, against Jeff Hardy. Now, when I say carbon copies, it's because Mr. Anderson, he used pretty much Jeff Hardy's Swanton bomb during his run in WWE. He was also a very enigmatic person on the mic when it came with Jeff Hardy, who was an enigmatic person in general. But the charisma between these two spoke volumes, and their rivalry could have been something very attainable to where you could have a potential dream match between the two, but all it was mainly was just 6 to 7 minute matches against the others, where their feud quickly ended within maybe 2 to 3 months to where they were a tag team, and then once again it changed when Hogan and Bischoff came into where Hardy became a heel. But I'm talking about their preset feud before the Hulk Hogan and Bischoff era. I'm talking about how Jeff Hardy, at the time, very enigmatic, was a wild man who was a huge face, could have been something more against Anderson, who was the biggest asshole you have ever come across, and I will concede my time.
Time was up, so that's okay. Ryan, 90 seconds when you start talking.
Once again, Hulk Hogan has to rear his ugly head. Now, TNA being what it was, yes, the acquisition of Hulk Hogan was supposed to be something, spectacular. We were supposed to hopefully see a new invigorance of energy throughout the entire franchise. And unfortunately, things didn't turn out like that. Now, as far as Sting being a member of TNA for quite a few years already, pretty much being the elder statesman of TNA at that time, pretty much the go-to guy. He was the old reliable, had a couple of championships under his belt. He was the one who was actually going ahead and going against Hogan, which when Hogan came in, things were going fine. Things were going great. In fact, we were actually seeing more of a Sting heel turn, which is not something you normally see. It was possibly going to be something very interesting with Hogan versus Sting, where almost it's a switching of sides. But did we get that? No, we didn't. You know what we got? We got the exact same freaking thing we got in WCW during the NWO days. We got freaking Immortal with Hogan and Bischoff and Hardy and so many others that didn't need to be a part of this nonsense versus Sting, the Avenger, who, because of all this, had one of the worst matches in all of TNA history and one of the weirdest gimmicks that I've ever seen Sting have.
Time. All right, gentlemen, 5 minutes, fight it out.
Jesus Christ, let me just get Victory Road 2011 off the table. Let's just set that, all right? That was pretty much like a clue as to what was possibly going to be going on here. Everyone knows TNA. Everyone knows Victory Road 2011. Jeff Hardy, Sting, the match that had to be done in like a couple of minutes because otherwise Jeff Hardy was going to throw up on the outside of the ring. That aside, the fact that Sting at that point almost had to like go insane slowly while dealing with Jeff, while dealing with Mr. Anderson, while dealing with all these people that were under Hogan's wing, inevitably looking like a jackass, but then having it all switched around where Jeff is the heel, Anderson's the heel, Hogan's the heel, and Sting in his madness becomes the insane icon, a parody of the Joker from 2008's The Dark Knight, which actually he was probably less Heath Ledger and more Jared Leto, let's be honest, with some of that overacting.
I need to clarify a few things you're bringing up there. Sting technical heel turn was when Hogan came in there. Everything Sting did afterwards, after the Jeff Hardy incident at Victory Road, that was him trying to convince. It was never to really set up a match. It was trying to get Sting to bring Hogan back to the good side. His whole thing, even after their feud was over, he said, I went to dark places just so I can get Hogan back on the side of good again. That was not technically in most senses.
That was said after the fact, though. You can't necessarily say that that's happening in the vacuum of Immortal while he was a part of it.
Yeah, but if you wanted to clarify on the heel Sting, then before the show of Immortal, when Hogan and Sting were fighting against her, when Sting was aligning himself with Ric Flair, with the built faction of Kazarian, Rude, James Storm, and AJ Styles of Fortune, and Kevin Nash.
Fortune and Immortal already had their own rivalry despite Sting. The fact that Sting only used them as clown posse for that one match is negatable because even then they had a truce. They didn't have a truce. Who knows what the fuck was going on between the two factions to begin with? The fact of the matter is there was so much potential for what we could have gotten with the roles reversed, and we got pretty much sold a bag of goods that was not what we got. And instead, we have a crazy Sting who overacts in the entire damn thing, and it wasn't worth the anticipation of something new. Instead, it was just the same old thing with a fresh coat of paint, especially on Sting's face.
I'm going to be honest. Sting overacting is much better compared to Jeff Hardy's overacting in his rivalry against Mr. Anderson. And this whole thing started
overacting. I can't tell. He was too drunk up at the time.
Every time he attacked Mr. Anderson, there's one instance where Jeff Hardy attacks Mr. Anderson after a match against a jobber, and then he starts going on the mic, pretending to be Mr. Anderson, going, "Oh, Jeff, I'm such a big fan of yours by using your Swanton bomb." "Oh, really, Mr. Anderson? I'm so glad you think that. Maybe we should have a match coming up at the next TNA pay-per-view. I think that's a good thing too." That was cringy compared to Sting's overacting. At least Sting, he had his time in WCW, his early days in TNA, to actually know when to overact and when to actually play it on. Sure, it was ridiculous, but compared to what I was seeing between Mr. Anderson, who is fantastic on the mic, every time he was signaling for that microphone and holding that pause to get people to go, "Mister," and then waiting for that. He knew exactly what to do because these two men were so charismatic. The charisma between Sting and Hogan faded to the point where overacting was needed.
Right, but then by saying how well they jive together, whether they're facing each other or whether they were tag team partners, in which they were at some point, you can't say that they didn't live up to the hype. You're basing the hype based upon a simple 2-3 months in which they were actually rivaling against each other and negating everything that happened afterwards. If they had actually given more breathing room to actually see where this could have gone, rather than being introduced into Immortal, we could have actually gotten a great rivalry. But there was no feud. There was no rivalry to it. It was basically a holdover until Hogan got his measly little hands into things. Now, on my end, you've got Hogan versus Sting at Bound for Glory 2011 as like the final nail in this entire coffin because Hogan kept on screwing Sting over and over and over to the point where Hogan interfering in matches just became repetitive. It was boring at that point. And then he had to fight Ric Flair in order to win a match against Hogan. Like, who's not going to beat Ric Flair at his old age with his crimson face mask of blood coming down his face? The whole idea of everything that we saw here is just repetitive trite.
Mine was 2 to 3. Mine was much shorter. So when they were forced together, those two had no chemistry between each other as a tag team. They were just, we're paired together. Cool. And then Hogan comes in, the Bound for Glory series happens, and that's it.
Lots of tag teams don't have chemistry and they're still successful.
The cap happened the moment Hogan showed up. We could have gotten so much more between them, possibly, but with Hardy and Anderson facing each other in that triple bet, that could have been a true rivalry. Instead, it was just a mute point put on ice.
Time. Whew. All right. Ryan, this is the Painmaker strength, so 1 minute on the clock when you start talking.
I'll use my extra minute.
Alrighty. 2 minutes on the clock when you start talking.
The question is, what feud didn't live up to the hype? Now, if you're talking about hype, if you're talking about build-up, if you're talking about anticipation, you have to look at something from beginning to end. Now, you could honestly say that, the beginning and end of it was within that 2-3 months as far as Anderson and Hardy are concerned. But obviously, there was still something going on between them two, even if it was a part of Immortal. There was a longer rivalry, feud, buddyship, the kind of thing that you almost see with like Ciampa and Gargano at the time. You could go ahead and have something really successful with them. And unfortunately, you can't say the same with Sting and Immortal. If it was strictly like a Sting heel, Hogan face sort of scenario where Sting was just running roughshod through TNA, that could have been something. That could have been really ideal. Instead, what we get is Sting going through Kurt Angle, Anderson, Ric Flair, pretty much just going on these goofy tirades between everyone that Immortal happened to soak up and piss out at that time. To end it with a match between Hogan and Sting, where Hogan couldn't even get the job done that well, his body dying on him. As far as feuds go, this was a feud, this was a rivalry that should have stayed dead back when WCW ended. I was hoping that they were going to go ahead and go and do something fresh, something interesting, something different. Really put TNA on the marker instead of just being an old folks' home for old retired wrestlers and actually utilizing them properly. Did we ever get that? Ever? From the moment Hogan stepped into that ring to the moment he gave the company back to Dixie Carter? No. We never got a single bit of that. Instead, we got Sting going off crazy balls ass, throwing poker cards, and painting up his face maniacally, and overacting to the point where his credibility went like the baseball bat in the gut.
Alrighty, Painmaker. Wrap up this round. 1 minute when you start talking.
As I have said in my opening, TNA presented the opportunities of wrestlers who were underutilized or mistreated and gave them a platform to where you can realize the potential there was. Jeff Hardy and Anderson was a potential match that could have happened in WWE but did not happen because of personal situations or because of politicking. We finally get that opportunity in TNA, and it's rushed. As much as we want to talk about Sting and Hogan, at least there was a long storyline structure. There was a middle there. The middle for Hardy and Anderson to at least form a genesis, to have a foundation to a long rivalry that it came with Immortal, was stripped away from us. And I would rather take unused potential over something that was recycled again and again. At least with unused potential, we have something. Damn, that minute went fast.
It did. He started talking. I look up. I'm timing it here on the last minute on the counter. I look up and I went, "Holy crap!" Like 10 seconds, it completely dropped off the timer. I went, "Holy crap!" That went faster than expected. So, all right, gentlemen, give your thoughts. Wrap them up. Let's see them. Let's do our salute to Orange Cassidy. The next, he's gonna win that casino ladder match, and he's gonna, he'll hold all the gold in AEW shortly.
Oh, that could have been a question, but the participants weren't revealed at the time.
All right, are we good to go, gentlemen? Let me see. That's 1, 2. Screw it. We'll go with JB3. JB3, who gets your point? Why?
So, for that one, man, it's all big O for me. Yeah, he just, the way he was explaining Hogan and Sting, it was so hyped and so trash. It just seemed like it was a bigger level than the way that the other two guys were getting explained, Jeff and Mr. Anderson. So he took my point.
All righty. Jonathan, who gets your point? Why? Is this match over, or are we going to find out from Kevin?
I'm actually gonna defer. I'm giving my point to the Paymaker because he pulled out some good ideas that why he had no sort of more potential. And even he pointed out during the opening, though, is more underutilized. And when the rivalry itself right here didn't get not only utilized very well, but it was just having kind of no chemistry right here during the rivalry. So I think he put some good examples on that. So I'll get my points in the Paymaker.
All right, Kevin, what are we doing?
Oh boy. I'm gonna agree with one of them, and that is Big O. Especially the part of the one I did not hear anything against was the reference of Victory Road 2011, which led to this situation to begin with. So my point goes to Big O.
And your winner, moving on, is Ryan the Big O.
O'Regan.
O'Regan. Okay, okay. Excuse me. I was gonna get there, but you know what? I was gonna call you the King of Dong, but I didn't know.
No. Not the King of Dong.
You want to get sued?
No. That's someone else completely different.
So, all right. I'm gonna drop both competitors out real quick. Let's have a conversation with the judges. What do you guys think of this match? I thought it was a slobber knocker all the way through. What do you guys think?
It was great. I thought it was a good match. Big O in the first half for me was just going ham, and then for question 3 for me, Ryan came back. Us as judges, we had a lot of different answers. We went a lot of different ways. But as far as these two competitors go, I honestly for a second thought we were going to get some overtime going. But it was a close match. Big O got it.
Yeah, I agree. I would not have been surprised if we had overtime. Kevin, Jonathan, do you guys have anything else you kind of want to add, or do you kind of agree with JB3?
Yeah, but I think.
Oh, all right. Go ahead. Sorry.
All right, I had to agree with JB3 on this. What's very difficult. I kind of thought this was going to be a long one, and I had
That's
like
what she
really
And I didn't say that. I just want to point out I didn't say that one.
And I had a really tough time choosing, and hopefully next round, if they face each other, this could be a long one next time if they ever face each other again.
Yeah, same thing for me. And both of them know they're wrestling very well. I know that from experience. And they pointed out some really great examples of their arguments, and there's some of the counters. So, I hope they might play each other again in the future. And I just want to say congratulations, Big O.
You know what? That's okay. There's always next time. Ryan, how do you feel? I mean, you again put up another hell of a good fight.
No, thanks a lot. Honestly, going up against Brian, I've seen him debate in the past, and since we're both big wrestling fans, it's clear to me. When it came to my choices, I really tried to look at some of the aspects that would involve with it. Would be the storytelling with my choices. I tried to implement storytelling. I tried to implement some technical, but with this being such a very short time limit kind of debate style. And also, we got to get to our points quickly, and I could tell that Ryan Big O knew exactly what he was talking about. And my best option, and the only best way I could counteract that was just trying to reiterate everything I say in the opening. And it didn't work out for me today. That's okay. It would have been fantastic to play up against Nico for the Chokeslam belt. I mean, but you know what? Another opportunity will arise down the road. And hopefully this time, perhaps, it doesn't matter who I'm going to go up against. It's just hope that maybe this time with my debating style, I'll be able to be more quicker to the point than trying to run around the bush.
Yeah, well, and trust me, you put up a hell of a fight. I'm sure that they will have you back in the Chokeslam ring sooner than later. But congratulations, great fight. You're still family. I'm gonna drop you back. All right, Big O, you did it. You won this fight. You told me earlier that you've seen Brian compete before, and you weren't taking him lightly. How do you feel about this match?
I'll be honest. I was nervous at the beginning because when you lose on something that's your particular favorite, it can rattle you. Obviously, you think you have it in the bag, you think you know it well enough, and yet still, when they go ahead and usurp you, it's jarring. All credit to Ryan Payne, Ryan to Ryan, full respect every single day. I've seen Ryan in matches. I've seen Ryan handle matches, host them, judge them. He's no slouch when it comes to debate. So I knew that as of this point, he probably would have been the hardest competitor that I would have had to face in Chokeslam. So to actually pull out the victory is not only a credit for myself to win, but it's a credit to Ryan for being the intimidating factor that he is to make me want to put up the best game possible. So this way I could at least be on par with him.
Oh, and that's understandable. Now, you said being the hardest person to compete. Earlier I mentioned that we are on the road to Scratch and Claw, which is our next pay-per-view. Right. I can actually now announce who your next opponent's going to be. Would you like to know?
Yeah, I got time. Oh, that one. Okay, yeah, all right.
Hello.
Hola, ¿cómo estás? ¿Y tú bien?
Good for you. You speak Spanish, you speak English, you speak the language of wrestling, and so do I. And that's why I have this Chokeslam title right here over my shoulder. My Red Sonja, if you will. And today, the better Ryan did win, but at Scratch and Claw 2, your longest reigning champion will continue his reign. Longest reigning Chokeslam champion and longest reigning champion currently in all of TMG. Because everyone seems to just think, oh, I won the belt, I can drop it now and leave. No, I've stuck around. I've waited for the longest time for someone to step up and challenge me. And I thought I was going to have that back in February. I did not get that. So, Ryan, I am not only asking you, I am begging you, do not drop out. Give me the fight of my life for this title, and I will give you the fight of mine. So don't you dare chicken out.
I'm sorry, was dropping out an option? Because I didn't see that in the rules and regulations. So if it's not, then obviously I'm in. All in, as the phrase is nowadays. And I didn't realize that about you. I didn't realize that you had the belt for so long, that you were the longest reigning champion. Those are fantastic accolades. I will give that to you, Nico. That's why it's going to be all the sweeter when I actually take the belt away from you, because that's going to make the moment that much more historic. And who doesn't like being a part of history?
You're not the first person who's tried to knock me down, and you won't be the last, but I keep getting back up every single time, and I keep proving the damn people wrong. I was not even considered the favorite for the tournament to crown the inaugural champion, and here I am. Since October, I have had this title over my shoulder, and I will continue to have that title over my shoulder after Scratch and Claw 2. So bring it, Big O. Bring it.
But by the way, does that belt actually change hands? Because, I mean, I do have some wall space somewhere around here. It would be nice to actually post up. But no, that's good, though. That's good. I like that you have the determination of a champion, that you are a fighting champion, that you will get knocked down and get back up. But let's not forget what has to come first in that scenario. You get knocked down. And as long as you stay down there for the 1, 2, 3, that's all that really matters.
I won't stay down for the 1, 2, 3. I'll just triangle your ass and choke you out.
Have you seen this neck? I don't choke easy.
I've trained with people bigger in jiu-jitsu. I know what I'm getting myself into.
I'm from Jersey, and I just survived a car crash, and being kidnapped, and being assaulted, and having a skull cracked in.
Matt, this back and forth is going nowhere. I think you can end it now.
All right, guys. So there you have it. I will announce that at Scratch and Claw 2, our reigning champion, Nico Suave Rigoli, will be taking on the Big O, Ryan O'Regan. He is the king of Dong style in his own mind. In his own mind. Everybody from everybody here at the #1 Contenders match, I was Matty G, and good night and good fight.